Emma was accustomed to the long night shifts at St. Mary's Hospital. She always believed she knew every corner of the building, from the dim lights in the hallway to the beeping sounds of the heart monitors. But tonight, as she stepped into room 302 to check on the comatose patient Jonathan Wells, the young nurse had no idea that within seconds, a horrifying truth would be revealed. And from the moment Jonathan opened his eyes, her life and that of little Emily would take an unexpected turn. Before diving into the story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. She pulled the blanket up for the middle-aged man and quietly checked the readings on the monitor. Everything was normal. But just as she was about to turn away, she heard a faint voice. "Save the girl." Emma froze. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in the silent room. She blinked and looked down at the man who remained motionless on the bed. His eyelids twitched slightly, but his body didn't move. Impossible. A man who had been in a coma for 3 months couldn't just speak. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, and stepped back. Maybe she was exhausted. Maybe it was just her imagination. But when she looked closer, she noticed his fingers twitching slightly. Emma quickly checked Jonathan's medical file, but found no information about his family. No wife, no children. Then who was the girl he mentioned? An uneasy feeling crept over her. The next morning, during her break, Emma decided to seek out Mrs. Margaret, an elderly nurse who had worked there for nearly 30 years. When Emma mentioned Jonathan Wells, Mrs. Margaret's face suddenly changed. She set her teacup down, her eyes filled with concern. "Emma, you shouldn't get involved in this." "But you know something, don't you?" Emma pleaded. Mrs. Margaret remained silent for a long moment before sighing. Before his accident, he had a daughter. The girl went missing, and the police never found her. But do you know what's most bizarre? Jonathan Wells fell into a coma just 2 days after reporting her disappearance. Emma felt chills run down her spine. A coincidence, or something far more sinister? She returned to the patient's room, standing silently by Jonathan's bedside. If he truly knew what had happened to his daughter, why did he lose consciousness right after? Should she believe his whispered words? Suddenly, her phone vibrated. An unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Nurse, help me." Emma's breath caught. The trembling voice sounded like that of a young girl. "Who are you?" she asked, her heart pounding. There was a brief silence before the voice whispered, "I'm Emily. I'm so scared. They're coming." The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, a cold chill running down her spine. How was this possible? Emily was Jonathan Wells' missing daughter. If so, who had just called her? Emma frantically searched for the number, but it wasn't in her call log, as if it had never existed. Emma could no longer dismiss this as a mere coincidence. She decided to dig deeper. The following night, during her shift, she accessed the hospital's old patient record system. After endless searching, she finally found a file related to Emily Wells' disappearance. But something was strange. Several pages had been torn out. Her fingers traced the remaining words, "Last seen at the abandoned warehouse behind the hospital." Emma felt her heart tighten. That place had been deserted for years. Without hesitation, she decided to go there. Under the dim light of her flashlight, she carefully navigated through the dusty clutter, her chest tightening with anxiety. The silence was so profound that she could hear her own breathing. But then, a faint sound echoed from the corner of the warehouse. She quickly turned around. In the darkness, a pair of terrified eyes stared at her. A frail girl in tattered clothes, her eyes filled with fear. "Emily." The girl trembled and stepped back, but Emma quickly spoke. "It's okay. I'm Nurse Emma. I'm here to help you." Emily opened her mouth as if to speak, but before she could utter a word, The sound of footsteps echoed from outside the door. Emma's heart skipped a beat as the warehouse door slowly creaked open. A tall man stood there, his cold eyes fixed on her. "You shouldn't be here." In that moment, Emma realized she had stumbled upon a truth darker than she could have ever imagined. And now, she had to get Emily out, before it was too late. Emma tightened her grip on Emily's hand, feeling the girl trembling uncontrollably. Facing them, the tall man blocked the only way out, his gaze as cold as ice. "You've already seen too much, Nurse Emma." His voice was low as he slowly stepped forward. Emma tried to stay calm. She glanced behind her. There was a small window, just big enough for a child to crawl through. She leaned down and whispered to Emily, "Do you trust me?" Emily nodded, though her body was still trembling. "When I give the signal, climb through that window and run straight to the reception area. Someone there will help you." Emily bit her lip, determination flickering in her eyes. Emma knew that no matter how scared the little girl was, she would follow her lead. The man continued to approach, blocking every possible escape route. "Do you really think you can get away?" he sneered. Emma knew she couldn't hesitate. In a split second, she reached for an old wooden shelf beside her and yanked it down. Crash! The books and boxes toppled over, creating a barrier between them and the man. "Run, Emily!" Emma shouted. Without hesitation, Emily dashed toward the window. The girl swiftly climbed through and disappeared into the darkness. The man scowled and rushed toward the window to chase after her. Taking advantage of the moment, Emma quickly backed toward the main door, turned the handle, and bolted out into the hallway. She ran with all her might, her heart pounding wildly. Behind her, she could hear the hurried footsteps chasing after her. The hospital corridor at night was eerily silent. But as soon as she turned the corner near the reception area, Emma saw 2 security guards patrolling. "Help me! There's a stranger in the hospital!" she shouted. The 2 security guards immediately became alert. When they turned to look, the man behind her took a step back, hesitation clear in his eyes. "Who are you? Why are you here at this hour?" one of the guards asked, stepping forward. The man didn't answer. He took another step back before suddenly turning and running toward the back exit. Emma gasped for breath, but didn't chase after him. She only cared about Emily. She ran out to the hospital yard, her eyes frantically searching. And then, "Miss Emma!" a small voice called out. She turned around and saw Emily standing beside a nurse, safe and sound. Emma rushed over, knelt down, and hugged the little girl tightly. "You're safe now. It's all over." Emily buried her face in Emma's shoulder, sobbing uncontrollably. A few days later, Emma sat by Jonathan Wells' hospital bed. He was still unconscious, but his breathing had become steadier. She gently held his hand and softly said, "You tried to save Emily even while unconscious. She's safe now. You can rest assured and come back to her." And as if his soul heard her words, Jonathan's eyelids fluttered slightly. A week later, he woke up. When he saw Emily standing beside him, tears streamed down his face. The little girl threw herself into his arms, trembling and crying. Emma quietly stepped out of the room, leaving the moment of reunion to them. Jonathan held Emily tightly, as if afraid she would disappear at any moment. His eyes were red, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Emily. I couldn't protect you sooner." Emily shook her head, tears falling but with a bright smile on her face. "Uncle Jonathan, I'm fine. Thanks to Miss Emma, I'm safe." Hearing Emma's name, Jonathan turned to her with gratitude in his eyes. But before he could say anything, Emma simply smiled gently. "What matters is that you two have found each other again." Emma knew this was their moment. She quietly stepped away, leaving them their private space. In the days that followed, Jonathan gradually recovered. Emma visited him and Emily often, but she knew her role was coming to an end. One late afternoon, as the golden sunset bathed the hospital garden, Jonathan called Emma over. "You know, when I was in a coma, I could hear your voice. You have no idea how much I clung to it." Emma was stunned. "You mean you were conscious the whole time?" Jonathan nodded. "Not always, but there were moments when I felt your presence and Emily's. It was your words that kept me going." Emma smiled. She had never thought that her care could make such a profound impact. Jonathan took her hand and said seriously, "You saved Emily, and you saved me. I don't know how to thank you enough. If you ever need anything, a new job, a home, or any opportunity, just tell me." Emma looked at him, her heart filled with emotion. But she shook her head. "I only did what my heart told me to. I don't need anything. I just hope you both will always be happy and safe." Jonathan remained silent for a moment, then chuckled. "You truly are a special person, Emma." A month later, Jonathan was discharged from the hospital. Emily officially returned to him, no longer living in fear. They moved to a small house in the suburbs, where the little girl could run and play freely, laughing every day. As for Emma, she continued her work. But ever since that fateful night, she realized one thing. A nurse's duty wasn't just to heal physical wounds, but also to bring hope to those who needed it most. One late night during her shift, she received a letter. It was from Emily. Inside was a drawing. The little girl had drawn Emma with a pair of small angel wings, standing in the middle of the hospital. Beneath it was a short but meaningful message. "Miss Emma, the guardian of miracles." Emma smiled, holding the drawing close to her heart. Because she knew, without any titles or rewards, this was the most beautiful gift she had ever received.